Welcome to Geek Out Virtual Con, the replay of our special 2-day live streaming event, April 11th through 12th, 2020. You are in the Author Alley with our special guests, Brian K. Morris, Evan Bond, Irene Smith, Bill McCormick, and J. Stephen Young. Hello, guys. We are on Geek Out Virtual Con, and we are in the next session with the next link, and we are in the session with some of our favorite authors around the internet. So if we want to just go around really quickly and introduce ourselves and where we can find you, let's start with J. Stephen Young, because we were chatting earlier.
Okay. Well, I am J. Stephen Young. I am a author of fantasy, sci-fi, dystopian children's books as well. Lots of fun stuff. Trumpery Resistance, my dystopian. Hashtag Magic is my latest release, the fourth book on that. I am all over as far as online stores and in a few indie bookstores, but the QR code you see here, you can go straight to the Amazon links or jstephenyoung.com.
Oops. Hold on a second. I was trying to add Irene.
Hello.
There she is.
I thought it would be really cool to write all my stuff on the blackboard or purple board behind me, but it's not all that readable. Sorry. I've been a technical writer for a very long time. I've worked at companies like Microsoft and Google and Mozilla, but I also write fiction, and I have a copy of my book right here. This is a collection of flash fiction. There's about 48 stories in this book. And yeah, I guess that's it for now, right? What else do you want to know?
Well, we'll get to that. And right now we've got Bill McCormick up here. Go ahead, tell us a little bit about yourself and your books.
All right, yeah, I'm Bill McCormick. Through an Amazon mistake, I became Bill McSci-Fi, and I stole that because they screwed up my author page. So that's it. I'm a writer, and behind me is this book one of a trilogy I wrote called The Brittle Riders that's out and doing well. It actually just got repurposed as an omnibus. So if you need a 1,200-page book to beat someone to death during the pandemic, I've got it for you. Legends Parallel, it's a critically acclaimed adult-oriented. Please do not buy it for children. It's a critically acclaimed adult-oriented science fiction thriller comic book. It's based on the actual theories of Hugh Everett III from 1949 to 1954 that postulated the possibility of a multiverse. And we went and actually used the real original math, so you don't end up with mirror universes. There's no evil Meredith anywhere. Everything's very, very different, very weird. A lot of fun. Above that, the Edgar Allan Poe Chronicles I was involved with. It's people who've done like Iron Man and Thor and stuff that we've all paid a lot of money to see. And me. They got me in there too, so it's fun. But we all took different. It's kind of like, I tell people it's like reading jazz, because it's a whole bunch of really talented people just vamping on Edgar Allan Poe, doing whatever the heck they want with it. I took the oval portrait and turned it inside out and made it into like a robot elegy. So you got that going for you. Savarchik is my teen book that I wrote. I occasionally will write for people who don't need naked bodies. Savarchik's a story about a woman trapped inside a man and a god trapped inside a human. Since she's all one person, she's got issues. It's a transgendered comic book that I wrote for some of the kids I mentor who are transgendered, and they wanted a hero, and they've got her, and they love it. So there we go. And then the last stuff I got up on top is the Hybrid Zero Multiverse. Started originally by a guy named Cyril Brown. And I jumped in a little over a year ago, rewrote everything, got us a publishing deal, got us a distribution deal, and now it's in stores all over the U.S., and we're looking at doing some big stuff with it. So, hi, that's me. I'm sorry about all that. That's way too much talking. You guys, back.
And up next, we have Brian K. Morris. He's one of my favorite morning personalities.
And personality is what I bring, sad to say. Anyway, I'm Brian K. Morris, independent publisher, freelance hybrid author, award-winning playwright, and former mortician's assistant. Also currently on Facebook, a Facebook famous broadcaster every day, 10 a.m. Never mind the furthermore on my channel, as well as I sneak in plugs every now and then for risingtidepublications.pub. And That's about all I can say. I'm also the cheerleader in chief of America right now. My books tend to be mostly contemporary fantasy and humor and horror. So kindly check them out at Brian K. Morris on Amazon and Smashwords. Hi, back to you, Meredith.
That was great. So this is our panel here. I am actually Rob. Can you hear us in the background? I don't know if you want to pop in here because you write. You are. I mean, I would consider you an author.
Well, I am releasing.
There he is.
I just came to watch Brian and hang out with you guys, so I don't want to take up any time.
Yeah,
I'm more the comic guy.
You're more than a comic guy, Rob.
Well,
I love you.
You are.
I know we're all.
I mean, we all
talking
bring
once, I'm
different
sorry.
things to the table.
There's nothing wrong with comic books.
Yeah,
I pay rent with them.
Yeah, I love comics. Don't get me wrong. But
That's right.
I'm here to learn from you guys as I'm stepping into being a novel thing. So I just want to kind of sit in the back and listen and learn. So,
And that was one of the things that I wanted to ask about was with the writing process. I mean, what was your motivation to start? Is it some would argue that I write because I must, and not because it pays the bills. So, I mean, if you want to kind of go around, let's just start a conversation and see how that goes. And of course, we're going to have an opportunity to plug your books and your projects, any kind of Kickstarters and things like that. But yeah, I mean, so what was the thing that started the process for you guys? Who wants to go first?
I'll take it.
Yeah, I was going to say, anybody?
Yeah, me. The kids in front.
Go, you.
Yeah. Okay, mine started when I was very, very young, and I learned to read from comics. I was the only kid in first grade that could spell the word invulnerable and knew what it meant. So my books would come out, and I wanted more. I wanted more Superman. I wanted more Fantastic Four, whatever. And so I started making up stories in between the issues. And later, when I was in 7th grade, I gave one of those very unfortunate what I did over my Christmas vacation essays in front of the class. And due to my word choices, I meant to say my Christmas tree was lit up, that my parents were near. Unfortunately, it made it sound like my teetotaling parents were lit up. And needless to say, my teacher wasn't happy with me, nor were my parents when I got home when the teacher narked on me. So I realized that words meant things. And then I also realized that somebody put those words in the comics. So why wasn't I becoming that guy? So I taught myself to write. And long story short, it wound up that now I'm writing for other people, and I also have my own Rising Tide company that I've had for about 8 years now, out of necessity because my former employer, note the adjective there, decided that my fortune was to lie elsewhere. So, but this is where I've wanted to be since I was like 7 years old, and so here I am, still acting like a 7-year-old, but I'm doing what I want.
Well, while I've got you there, what are some of the books and the content that you accept as Rising Tide Publications?
Well, currently we're working on an ongoing horror anthology called Frightening Things that has no real deadline at the moment. We're also working on our first heroic fantasy series called Doc Saga. It's kind of in the mood of like Doc Savage and Green Llama and all those, two-fisted pulp characters from way back when. He's kind of like this guy that just doesn't age anymore. He's a physician that goes around the world trading healing techniques and has become something different in the process. And the current book right now, we're still working on the inaugural one, but it takes place in 1970 when he's approximately 250 years old and dealing with a modern society. We've got some really great authors coming in that I'm really excited about. And of course, I've got a story in there because then that's one person I don't have to pay royalties. But no, I'm really excited because
that sounds really good.
I'm really excited by it. I genuinely am. Thank you very much. And hopefully it'll be out by the sometime towards the end of this year. But needless to say, we have plenty of time to work on it at the moment. So.
Yeah, I said I wanted.
And how about you, Irene?
Yeah, I actually remember nagging my mother to teach me how to read because I can remember when I was about 3 looking inside a book and wanting to know what it meant. So the first books I read were things like Alice in Wonderland and Dr. Dolittle, and I wanted to tell stories like that. And it's been a really long journey to get there. But I finally published my collection. I'm working on part 2. And I have well, you don't want to hear all that part. I became a technical writer because I hadn't been published yet. And I had promised myself, if I didn't get published by the time I was 30, I would quit writing forever and ever and ever. So help me God. And I was 29 and not published. So I submitted an article to a programming magazine and they bought it.
Very cool.
And I'm about to boot Christian in the queue and bring in Evan Bond. He came in a little bit late. I know, you're so out of here.
But he hasn't talked yet.
Hold on a second. Let me find him. There he is. Because I think when you guys are in the queue, you don't see anything but white space. Hi, Evan Bond. Welcome to the panel. We're going to go around and we're going to have you introduce yourself. When we get to you, you just hold your horses here. We've got Bill. I see Bill McSci-Fi. You know, it's Bill McCormick. Go ahead, tell us like your writing journey.
Actually, a little bit similar to Brian's, and a little bit. I guess we're all going to be the same at one point or another. When I came over from Ireland when I was 2 years old, and my grandparents took me in, and my grandfather was illiterate, and my grandmother was not really all that interested. But I was constantly reading a newspaper, trying to read everything. So they bought me a collection of books, including the Arabian Nights, the original Arabian Nights. So I was like 4 years old reading about beheadings and people being boiled in oil. And I was like, we can swear here, right? Can we swear? All right, that shit rocked. I was like all fucking over it, you know? So I got older and I worked for a music magazine for a while, and I worked for sports blogs and sports writer, and I won some awards and it was fun. Then in 2010, I was going through a horrible divorce, and I had never really published fiction. I had stories, and I tried doing different things, but I never really dumped into it. And I was going through this horrible time, and I said, I've got all these stories in my head, and I'm either going to become a serial killer, or I'm going to write these stories. So I wrote the stories. And in 2011, a company called Bewildering Publications bought one of my stories, a story called And the Beat Goes Fut. It's a story about the apocalypse, and a guy is a disc jockey, and he ends up hanging out with a terrorist who started the apocalypse. And the two of them are watching the end of the world happen on TV. And everyone thought it was a cool story. And other people wrote me and they're like, have you got any more stories? And I had more stories. And I just kept writing and writing. And then I wrote a novel called The Brittle Riders. And I actually had to go through a couple of different people to get the science right on it, because I had some pretty scary ideas, but I'm not a scientist. And so fortunately, I know some people who are, and they helped me with it. And I pitched it to one company, and they sent me a contract, and it was not one of those vanity presses. They actually give you money and sell it. And I said, okay. And so now I've been with Azoth Chem since 2016, and I've got 3 novels out with them now, and 2 more coming out this year. No, I didn't write them all in 1 week. They're written over a period of time. But so you got the Brittle Riders 1, 2, 3, and as I mentioned before, you can buy it as an omnibus and beat people to death with it. And then I've got another book coming out this year called Coldest of the Mists, Kitab Ek, which is the musical answer to the question no one asked, what the hell would happen if Brittle Riders was set in India? And so I did that. And I've got I sold a motion picture screenplay, and then they came back and hired me to write a novel about it. And so that's coming out this year too. It's called Splice. And then of course I got all my comic books, which keep me entertained. Mm-hmm. I'm a busy guy.
Yeah, J. Stephen Young, how about you?
Oh boy! Here. Well, I had since an early age, I actually hated reading because they didn't match any of the stories going on in my head. So I started keeping journals from a very young age, and then around 8, 9 years ago, I started writing things down in a more consumable fashion, I would say, from the chicken scratch that was in all my old journals. When I released Chronicles of Algeria, which is a epic fantasy sort of sword and sorcery trilogy based on Sumerian mythology. And then I ventured a bit into children's activity books, more out of necessity to write some stuff on printing practice and handwriting, teaching cursive to kids, which ironically is more popular overseas until the last couple of weeks. All of my kids' activity books and writing books have been picking up in sales since we all went into self-quarantine. So at least some kids getting homeschooling are learning more than just mixology and making mommy drinks. But then I ventured, right? Then I ventured into, I work in technology. That's my day job that pays the bills. And wanted to write something that kind of mixed IT and magic. And that's when I came up with the idea for the #Magic series, which is a young boy who decides he wants to cheat the rules of magic, and he writes an app that he can do hashtags on his mobile devices, and it converts them into spells. So in each one having a technology-based theme, like the first one is Blue Screen of Death, because that's how the protagonist escaped from an ancient prison. Not a knock on Microsoft, but we changed the names to protect the not so innocent. Yeah. The second book, Control Alt Delete, he reboots his powers. The Web of Trolls is the third book. They get pulled into the virtual world where they're getting trolled. And the one that just came out in February, which is open source because his magical app ends up on the internet, which consequently drains his magic, and he has to get that stopped. And then I came out with a dystopian, it's labeled as a LGBT dystopian sci-fi political satire book. That's a mouthful, but it's Trumpery Resistance, which basically is set in a far future, and the world has gone to hell in a handbasket, and main character is trying to figure out, how to get things back to normalcy. It's more current affairs.
Yeah, no PC there.
Okay, excuse me, Meredith, you didn't tell me how expensive this was going to be for me.
Right? Well, it's like a con. That is exactly the experience that we're trying to do with this virtual con, is that if you are right, exactly, you're putting up your things, and promoting ourselves, and we're at these tables, trying to have this con experience as best we can in a virtual environment. Now, you know what? Evan Bond has been so good. He came late to the party, but some would say that we saved the best for last. So give us a quick introduction and tell us about your books.
We'll be back right after this break. Cards, the Universe, and Everything is a trading card collecting battle card game that has a little something from everything. From the Old West to outer space and everything in between, Cards, the Universe, and Everything is great for gamers and collectors of all ages. Download it from your app store, and as you collect hundreds of available cards, there are more weekly, so you can craft up to 10 decks and battle against your friends and other players from around the world. And if you're an educator, check out cardstheuniverseandeverything.com for a special offer for you and your students.
Now, you know what? Evan Bond has been so good. He came late to the party, but some would say that we saved the best for last. So give us a quick introduction and tell us about your books and your journey into writing.
Sure. And thanks for having me. So I started out, I was a big reader of Stephen King when I was a kid. My favorite was The Stand. And I was always big into writing short stories and little things like that. It really, when I took it seriously, it was more in high school. My English teacher, she gave us an assignment for what she was calling a fairy tale, and I didn't want to write a fairy tale. I wanted to write an action story. So I asked her, could I write an action story? And she said, yeah. So I came up with this character, Ethan McCormick. He was a Miami cop. His sister was taken hostage, whatever. And she loved the story so much, she kind of talked about it in front of the entire class. And that kind of pushed me into thinking, hey, maybe I should actually kind of continue this. So I just kept writing short stories from there. And I didn't publish my first book until 2015. But I'm a self-published author. I decided to go that route just because I like the control that I have. It's a lot of extra work, but it's fun. You control every aspect of everything. The marketing, the cover design, everything. It's a lot of fun, but a lot of work. but my first book that I published in 2015 was called To the Wolves, and it featured that character, Ethan McCormick, from that short story. So that was it's kind of an ongoing series of a detective novel. He in the first book, he's framed for murder, something he didn't do. He proves his innocence, and then he kind of moves on to become a private detective, and that continues out the series. But then from then on out, I kind of started getting a little bit darker with my writing, kind of pushing a little bit more towards horror, suspense, thriller. And my latest novel, I actually got it right here, Echoes of the Past. It's a psychological thriller about a woman who she moves to a small town to run from like an abusive relationship, and bodies start showing up around town. So of course, this very small knit town, they all blame her, and they want her gone, and they'll do anything, even her 9-year-old daughter, to get her. So, but yeah, I've been doing this for maybe about five years now, and it's been a cool journey. It's been a lot of fun, and it's pretty cool. I can't wait to see where it goes another 5 years.
Well, here's the thing that I love. Okay, a lot of people say when you're writing that you need to write about the things that you know, right? Well, I love writing horror also, and I love writing about serial killers and things like that. That doesn't mean I am one, and it doesn't mean that I am in that world. So, how do you answer that question when people are like, well, I want to write, and I think that's the worst advice that anybody can say is write what you know. Because I think a lot of our content is based on the experiences that we have, the things that we watch. We are influenced by the things that we see on social media and books and movies and things like that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. But you know what? I don't have paperwork that says I am sane. So think about that. Okay. Some people do. But I mean, so what do you guys think? Just kind of, let's just have a conversation here. Do you think that people need to kind of stay in their lane and write what they know? Or is it okay to just be kind of like kooky and crazy?
Well, the good thing about fantasy is, you get to make stuff up as you go along, right? Even, in sci-fi, you have to, I think, start with a bit of knowledge, or at least look things up and have facts to not kind of run off the rails. But again, you're making a story with characters who don't exist, they're coming out of your head. You don't have to know everything about them, as far as I'm concerned, in my own humble opinion. What you know is your character. What you know is their situation. What you know is how they're going to react and interact with other people. The stuff, the serial killer stuff, you can watch a lot of TV and get ideas and figure out, well, if I were a serial killer, I'd do it this way. Or my mom always said that she was going to kill Dad if he came home with another boat or something. It's about taking situations and running with it, I think. To limit yourself to writing to just what you know, I'd be writing about baking cakes and writing web pages.
They are really beautiful cakes, though. You got to see his.
Well, thank you.
I also think that you can take what you know and amplify it into what you're writing about.
Yeah.
With the brittle writers, I mean, obviously, I haven't killed every man, woman, and child on the human race. I have not created a sex slave in my living room. I have a girlfriend, but that's not quite the same.
I was going to say, Kimberly.
So there's not something you want to tell us, right?
The day is young,
she's going to kill me anyway when this is done. But like Steven said, you write the characters, you write what you know, and then you build off that and extrapolate. And yes, science fiction. I have a lot of science in my stuff. Even in the weird things like Hybrid Zero, we dissected. Cyril and I have over 150 pages of notes on just how we wanted to set up the multiverse, and that gets you like a page in the comic book. So science geeks like me, we're going to dive into that. But that's what we know, what we build on, and what we take with. And I'm sure Evan has only got a few bodies in his basement. And Evan, I just have to tell you, as someone with a nephew named Ethan, who is a hair designer in Fort Lauderdale, I'm thinking maybe you've met,
Evan, how about you?
I like to pepper in stuff that I know into my stories, and not necessarily write what I know, but kind of line it with stuff I know. Otherwise, I think it's more about writing what you love. If you're a lover of sci-fi or a lover of fantasy, or you love true crime or anything, it's less about writing what you know and more about writing what you love to do. You're something you love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's I think I like to write the things that scare me. I think that's key, because if it scares me, it might scare somebody else, or just any kind of emotion that my work can bring to myself. If I'm crying while I'm writing it, it's like maybe somebody else, or maybe I'm just having a PMS moment. I don't know. I'm so glad that there's another girl in the panel, but. So it's not necessarily the things that I know, but maybe the things that scare me. And I think that people can connect with that as well. And, speaking to knowing who your character is, Jay Stephen, you said something about that, where I think we really, when we're writing something, we have to know who our characters are. We have to know the backstory, where they're going, where they came from. And that's all in our head. And we try and translate as best as we can on the page. Do you guys have any tips or tricks as far as how you do your character developments?
I got one. I start out with once I get past the physical description, all the superficial stuff, I like to write, and this is something I learned when I was writing audio plays for a company about 10 years ago. I start out with about 205 to 500 words of that character introducing himself to me in his words. Now, the thing is, if it's a good guy, it's like, maybe he's self-effacing. Yes, I know I've got muscles of steel. I know I've got this great reputation, but I'm just an ordinary guy with a 360 IQ. Nothing special about me. Or, like you might have a villain's like, oh, why do you want to know about me? What have you heard? Maybe you've heard about this. Well, I wasn't there. Nobody saw me there. Nobody living. And that way I get quickly into their heads. And of course, as I'm writing the book or the short story or whatever, they become absolutely more real as I come up to a situation. How do they react to it? But that just starting that initial thing with the introduction really just pushes a lot of stuff out of the way and makes, I'm an outliner, I admit it. It makes that outline easier to write, because then I've got at least a slight handle on them to begin realizing how they might react to any sort of situation I throw on them. So
I do something similar. I use the snowflake method when I'm actually outlining books. Now, of course, my outlines and the end product, never the same, because my characters have a tendency to run away from me and do their own thing.
It's their fault.
Yeah, exactly. Like in Hashtag Magic, the main character, 16, he's sort of based off of me and some of my experiences. And his sister is my sister. Their grandmother is my grandmother, because my grandmother was just crazy as hell, and she used to tell us she was a witch and turn us into toads if we didn't go to sleep. Now, how that was going to make 6-year-old kids go to sleep, thinking their grandmother's, grandma's downstairs drinking her 50-50 and passing out so we could stay up. But I start from that base, and people I know, and I people watch, and I take the crazier the better. Those are the people that I take their personalities and I match them to a character in my book. Now, I do the same thing as you do, Brian. I kind of interview my characters to find out what their motivations are. Mm-hmm. And then as I'm writing, and my outline kind of gets thrown out the window, and things or people are doing their own thing, it's because my characters are evolving in my head and on the pages, and their interactions are sort of changing how they behave.
Mm-hmm.
No dead allowed.
You know what?
There's no dead space allowed. What the heck?
Dead
space.
Don't make me feel this hour.
What a ridiculous thing. I know. And actually, we could probably fill in like several hours with just some of the knowledge that we have in our experiences, developing of characters, outlining, and things like that.
Not me.
Evan, you didn't pop in with this one.
Yeah,
You
I
got
kind of
something to
did.
share?
I kind of do the same thing. I do like a little interview. I've got like a sheet that's got all sorts of questions on it. Like, I mean, it details like favorite color, birth date, stuff that might not even be used in the book. I just like to know the character. I get to know their greatest fear, their biggest mistake. I fill all that out. I get to know the character on like a personal level. So it's not much different than everyone else. It's kind of just the same. It's a little character interview and stuff. Just something that it comes out in the story.
I think my most fun challenge was I created a character in my short story that's called The Wand Whisperer. It's a book told in first person from the wand's point of view because it's sentient. And she becomes bonded with her mage. So she's actually sort of both the point of view of her and her mage. So it was kind of, how do I jump back and forth between the two? But then what is the motivation of a wand? What is the personality of a wand? This is where it's complete speculative application of, I've never been an inanimate object. Well, there are a few people who might beg to differ, but it's how do you take that and apply that to a character?
Tune in to find out more after this 30-second break.
Hey guys, Matthew here with geekinsider.com, and I just wanted to give a quick shout out to one of our sponsors, mobileedge.com. If you're a gamer and looking for some gear to protect your gaming gear, Mobile Edge has gaming backpacks, they've got totes, they've got all kinds of carrying cases and tech for today's mobile lifestyle. Protect your tech with Mobile Edge. Look sharp, travel smart, Mobile Edge. Bring it on.
How do you take that and apply that to a character? And I sort of took bits and pieces of the saucy crabbiness of my grandmother, because this is an ancient wand. She originally belonged to Merlin, was created by Merlin, and it's modern day. So she's got centuries and centuries of attitude, and from the opinion that it's the wand that makes the mage and not the other way around. I had to develop those sorts of questions and answers for what equates to a magical piece of stick.
I, on the other hand, am a complete pantser. There's no outline whatsoever. Hell, I don't even wear pants half the time.
I was just going to say, but
okay. I'm not wearing them today. Here, let me know.
Common ground.
No, I admit, I usually write in my nightgown.
But here,
I write in my nightgown too.
This is a true story. When
I want to see that. You got a picture?
When I was writing the Brittle Riders,
You guys are lucky I'm in a bra. Okay, come on.
when I was writing the Brittle Riders, I was close to the 100,000 word mark on it, and I was looking at it, and I realized I hated it. I mean, I loved the characters, I loved everything I had at the front end of it. I hated everything I'd done with them. So I literally erased 80,000 words when I was supposed to instead be delivering it to a publisher who had already bought it. And I threw out 80,000 words, rewrote the whole front end of this thing, sent that in, a couple months later. Sorry for the delay, kids. Sent that in, and I got one of the most fun emails ever. They're like, "We hate you, but this is so much better." And one of the things is, and we're talking about characters. I have a character in the book named Sland, and when I wrote the original book, when I first started it, I wrote him as comic relief. He was the stupid guy who said one-liners, just the guy, "Hey, what are you doing?" One of those guys. But the more I wrote it, the more he kept in my head going, "Well, I wouldn't do that. No, I wouldn't do that." And I started getting into arguments with my characters in my head. And then I realized I was losing those arguments. And that's what made me go back and rip that whole thing apart and rewrite 80,000 words to get done with book one. And then realize when I finished book one that I hadn't finished the story. I just finished this. So now there's book two and book three. So yeah, Brittle Riders, and by the way, there's no chapters in it. So it is 310,000 words of a chapter. So if anyone tells you there's rules to publishing, tell them to screw off. Bill broke them. They're all gone.
Rules are meant to be broken.
Exactly.
Rules and dominatrix or submissives, but I don't know. Somebody.
We're going to get along, Bill.
Oh, you and I are getting along fine, Brian.
I used to think I was a total pantser too until the day that I changed a character's eye color about halfway through and didn't realize it until I went back to read. So now I do some outlining. I usually know the beginning and the end, and I keep character sheets so I don't do that again.
Yeah. I do kind of a combination. I say I'm an outliner. But I kind of ignore my outline as I go and I forget things because I'm trying to get that initial story out. And I'm like those old writers that used to like start writing before lunch, then drink their way through lunch and then come back to the typewriter. Everything is completely different after that. That's why we edit.
And thank God we don't have to write on typewriters anymore.
I still love typewriters.
I love typewriters, but I spent more time cutting pages and trying to insert things.
Yeah.
And I love word processing.
I think we're all aging ourselves here. We're all aging ourselves. Well, we have 10 more minutes left before the next group comes in for our virtual con. And it went by so fast, and I really want to invite you guys back for another live stream. Maybe not a con, but with Geek Insider, we're doing live streams and we're doing interviews and things like that because I think we have a lot of knowledge that we want to share. But in the last 10 minutes, I just want to kind of go around the room and let us know what you've got, as far as your books, where we can find you, where we can connect with you. And then we're going to also blast this out on social media. A lot of you have profile pages on Geek Insider already, so we can direct people to that as well. Connect with these guys. Do them on social media. Wink, wink.
Do us.
Oh yeah, baby, do me.
You know what? They say authors are not.
Like a man.
What an unruly bunch.
Talk about hashtags and hard links.
Pirates. All of you are pirates. All right, let's go around the room. Let's start with who wants to go first?
Mine are
Don't
easy.
all volunteer at once.
My main website is jstephenyoung.com. I'm on the Twitters at jstephenyoung.com. TikTok is author.jstephenyoung. Pinterest, or most everything is author.jstephenyoung on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook. But everything can be found from jstephenyoung.com. Current project is the full novel for the Wand Whisperer to pick up where the short story left off.
Mm-hmm. I can go next. By the way,
I'm go ahead, Irene.
Definitely checking you out because all your actually all of you guys, your books are just sound so good. Well, it's true. It's really true. Okay.
Thank you.
I actually have two websites because I also do web design. I have irenesmith.com and irenepsmith.com. I have the coolest Twitter handle. It's Storyteller, story_teller. That's because I've been on Twitter for a long time. I actually joined in, I think it's 2009, 2008. I forget exactly. My book is available on Amazon and on Smashwords. And you can find links to my purchase pages on irenepsmith.com. Did I forget anything really important?
Show your book.
My book. Oh, yeah. My book. Here's my book. And you can find a link to it on irenepsmith.com. There's a books page, and you can get a link to it. I don't have one of those. Do I?
I know
for me.
Brian's been key in shameless self-promotion and how we do that in our own screens. There you go.
Okay. Oh, and by the way, on my irenepsmith.com, there's a link to the short movie that my son made about one of my short stories. I wrote the script. He's in it, and he directed it. And he'll actually be on later tonight around 8 o'clock. Matthew Smith.
Yeah. Evan, you're up.
I saw that.
Where can we find you? You guys.
My website's it's simple, evanbondauthor.com. And all of my Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, Evan Bond Author. Currently, I've actually got a couple things I'm working on. I've got a YouTube channel called Books by Bond, and I'm doing narrated short stories. I write little short stories, and then I narrate them on my channel. I'm currently writing my next book, which is about he's a ghost, and he's Death's bounty hunter, and he hunts down ghosts that don't belong. And also over on Patreon/Evan Bond, I'm doing something called Dedicate or Die. Basically, anybody who joins my Patreon, they're either going to be, I'll give them a shout out on my next book. I'll literally dedicate the book to everyone who joins, or give them a death scene in the book, whichever one they pick. So, few things I'm working on.
Okay, Bill, how about you?
Okay. Obviously, you can find everything at BillMcSci-Fi.com. Let me see if I can get that in there. Twitter is Bill McSci-Fi, Instagram Bill McSci-Fi, Facebook Bill McSci-Fi. Amazon now actually is Bill McSci-Fi because they're the first ones who did it when no one asked them to. They screwed up my whole. In a way, yeah. I didn't sue them. They ripped all my books offline and had me penning country music, which, if you know me, that's not a good mix. Not a good mix. But no, so you go to BillMcSci-Fi.com, and actually, here's the cool thing. For the pandemic, I've set up an at-home store, so I've got stuff here in the house, and if you order from the store, it's just like a regular thing. It's a bank portal. You go through it, you pay your money, and I'll send you autographed copies of everything you order. And if you order the Legends Parallel graphic novel, which just came out, if you order the Legends Parallel graphic novel and say you saw it on Geek Insider, I'll even eat the shipping for you because I love you. You're all wonderful people.
And that one comes with a free thing of hand sanitizer, right?
No, it comes in the good tradition of Twin Peaks. It comes wrapped in plastic. So.
Ooh, there you go.
Toilet paper. Come on, where's the love?
Nice.
Brian, you're finishing us up.
Okay, because Meredith knew I'll suck all the oxygen out of the room. Well, unaccustomed as I am to promoting myself, I can be found at Rising Tide Publications on Facebook, where we have fresh content twice daily, and also on risingtide.pub, where you can see all the stuff I have on Amazon and Smashwords. And currently, like Bill, I am working on all kinds of projects. I currently, if you see a book of mine on Amazon, contact me. You can get it for the price of the book, and I'll eat the postage and sign it to whoever you want. I do a lot of horror, like this book based on a real-life haunted cemetery in Chicago. Also, my bestseller is Sadestein. Dr. Frankenstein has a cure for his fiance's holiday blues. What could possibly go wrong? I spent 180 pages telling you. Plus, I'm working currently on my first fantasy romance, Aquatic, Love Above the Waves. And then we're going to do a sequel to Volcana, Rebirth of the Champion. I've got the third book, and if you're real nice to me, I'll tell you what the title of that is. It's nasty. Anyway, also, if you want to get in touch with me, I have a page on Facebook. Also, every day during the My Sharona Cyrus, we are doing a live Facebook thing called Nevermind the Furthermore. You get points if you know where that's from. And it's a daily talk show where you come on and you can not only have a conversation with the people around you, but you get to promote yourself. And on Tuesday nights, I have a show called Clever Title Pending. Yes, that's the title. Don't send in your suggestions. I've seen them all. We're at 8 p.m., 7 p.m. Central, where we talk about creativity and the business behind it. Other than that, I don't have a thing. Thanks, Meredith.
Like I said, we need a lot more time than just this little 45 minutes. That was not enough. That was not enough.
No,
and we're all going to be in touch with each other. Yeah, we're going to be in touch, and hopefully we're going to do another panel with you guys, and invite some more authors on because we've got so much to say and so many characters, and we're not out there killing people, guys. We're just not.
We're
really.
not.
Just
We're
let
not.
me know, and I'm there.
Oh crap!
That's just all. We're just all stuck at home. That's why we're.
That's right. I have to again.
Extra time on our hands. I've been bedazzling my masks.
Well done.
I'm actually hosting a masquerade in a little bit today, so it's going to be fun.
Nice.
Well, in the queue, if you guys want to tune in, we are on YouTube, Facebook. We're Facebook all over the place. We're with OnCon. We're in the Florida Con Gurus. We are also hosting to Traveling TARDIS, Legend of the Traveling TARDIS, the Doctor Who radio show. Christian, you could have had a shorter title for that, damn it. And we're also on Geek Insider. I am going to start booting you guys out. Up next, we have Pam Meisel-Smith and Eric Smith-Gunn of Enfuego Entertainment. All right, so tune in. Keep watching. All right,
I will
you
say
guys.
bye.
I'm kicking you out.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Get lost.
Thank you for tuning in to Geek Out Virtual Con, the replay of our special guest panel of authors. Brian K. Morris, Evan Bond, Irene Smith, Bill McCormick, and J. Stephen Young. Be sure to follow them on social media wherever you can. But wait, there's more. We've got more panels and special guests, so be sure to subscribe to the Geek Insider podcast, available on iTunes, Spotify, and we're now on iHeartRadio. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button and tell all your friends, because if you don't, you might have to turn in your geek card.